Hi. Hi. It's nice to meet you.
It's been a while. I remember you were Frisco, that is for sure. So we're off and running.
Yes.
And Saturday was kind of, interesting?
Wild, crazy. Someone has some explaining to do, but at the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders is an NFL player. The Browns took him with the 144th overall pick. In between number 1 and 144, there was that unprecedented slide, the prank phone call, the speculation, but finally a landing spot, and for a franchise that has been a revolving door for quarterbacks.
Obviously, Shedeur has kind of grown up in the spotlight. But, our expectation is for him to come in here and work and compete. Nothing's been promised. Nothing will be given. I may, hesitate to characterize it as a blockbuster. That's not necessarily how we thought of the transaction. But we are excited to work with him.
I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity. I don't ever focus on the negative or even think about the negative because the positive happens so fast. And it's a change of emotions. For me, it was just playing quarterback. That's what it's about.
With that QB room there in Cleveland, going to need some more seats. They got 5 dudes in there. Clearly not all 5 of them will make the opening day roster. 4 of those guys you see were not on the roster in Cleveland last season. Of course, that includes the 2 quarterbacks they just chose in Gabriel and Sanders. All right, for some more perspective on what actually happened here with Shedeur Sanders, we bring in Jordan Reed to SportsCenter. And look, I don't want to speak for the Browns, but their draft selections would indicate that at the quarterback position, they rated Dillon Gabriel ahead of Shedeur Sanders. Based on what you've seen from this young man, the evaluations, the people you've talked to, how does that make sense?
Well, Michael, quite frankly, it doesn't to me, just because Shedeur Sanders was my number 19 overall ranked player. Dillon Gabriel, I had a 5th round grade on. I didn't even think it was close as far as the evaluation between the two. And I know Dillon Gabriel has been more successful than Shedeur Sanders from a statistical standpoint. But if we're just talking about the physical traits and what Shedeur Sanders can be on the next level, I don't even think it's even close between the two. We're talking about a quarterback that was the highest rated passer, and completion percentage was 74% a season ago. Supremely accurate. He's very, very good from the pocket as far as playing within structure, throwing the ball down the field. He's really good in the short to intermediate areas as well. I definitely think Shedeur Sanders can still be a starter on the next level, even though he was a 5th round pick.
Again, that's no disrespect to Dillon Gabriel. Congratulations to that young man for going where he did. But the common sentiment was that Shedeur Sanders was ranked well above Dillon Gabriel, but the draft didn't turn out that way. But regardless of how he got there, Jordan, now Shedeur Sanders is in Cleveland. In terms of the personnel they have there in the quarterback room we just showed you, how do you see him fitting in with the Browns?
Well, it definitely is very crowded. He's entering into a very crowded quarterback room. They already have Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett at the top of the depth chart. And we just mentioned Dillon Gabriel, and Deshaun Watson is still on the roster technically as well. But Shedeur Sanders, he enters into a situation where I think he has a chance to play at some point. But the biggest thing for him is that he has to understand that he is a day 3 selection, and he can't come into Berea thinking that he was a day 1 selection. He has to have a day 3 mindset and understand that that's his role right now behind Joe Flacco as well as Kenny Pickett. Just take notes from those guys, especially just cling on to Joe Flacco, who was once again in a situation with Lamar Jackson back in Baltimore. We saw what Lamar has turned out to be. Not saying Shedeur is going to end up being like Lamar Jackson, but just talking about the role initially that he needs to play.
By the way, though, Shedeur not the only Sanders making it to an NFL roster. His brother Shiloh, undrafted safety out of Colorado, he signed a free agent contract with Tampa Bay on Saturday. Jordan Reed joining us here on SportsCenter. All right, now we take 57 picks. The NFL draft for 2025 is officially done. Now it's about looking ahead now the teams have their players. A little more perspective, we bring Jordan Reed back to SportsCenter. All right, from what you saw on day 3 of the draft specifically, Jordan, who were your favorite picks?
Yeah, well, there's 3 players that really stood out to me, and I love the team fits with each of these guys. And the first one is Ty Robinson, a defensive tackle of Nebraska. I love this fit with the Philadelphia Eagles. We see how much they love to invest in the trenches at 6'5", 288 pounds. He had 15 tackles for loss a season ago, which was the most for a Nebraska defensive lineman since Ndamukong Suh in 2009. 7 sacks a season ago. He's going to fit right into that deep defensive line rotation in Philly. I really like this selection in the 4th round. The second one is DJ Giddens, the running back from Kansas State, going to the Indianapolis Colts. He's going to fit right into that RB2 spot behind Jonathan Taylor. He's a tough, hard-nosed runner, but I love the scheme versatility that he has. 37% of his rushing yards in 2024 came off of zone read. He had over 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns a season ago. I like this in Shane Steichen's offense. And then lastly, one of my favorite players, late-round players in this year's draft, was Jimmy Horn Jr., the receiver out of Colorado, going to the Carolina Panthers. You have to get more weapons for Bryce Young. It is a very crowded wide receiver room there now in Carolina. They spent the first-round pick on Tedoroa McMillan, taking him 8th overall. But I like this selection just because he rounds out your wide receiver core, but also he's going to give you kick return and also punt return value. So he's going to have to be a specialist early on. But as a 4th or 5th receiver, I really like the dart throw of Jimmy Horn Jr., adding him to the Panthers in the 6th round.
Look, history tells us, even recent history, that players selected on day 3, several of them end up being not just starters, but all pros and pro bowlers for their respective teams. We'll see who comes out of this one. By the way, especially for the prospects out there, April 23, April 25th, 2026, that's the next draft next year in Pittsburgh. Jordan Reed, appreciate it.
So one of the other things that make you go, storylines from the draft, look who drafted a kicker. That would be the Ravens. They took Tyler Loop of Arizona in the 6th round. All of this as Justin Tucker is being investigated for sexual misconduct, and football speaking, is coming off the worst season of his 13-year career. Here's Adam Schefter.
The Baltimore Ravens, until now, have stood behind Justin Tucker and said that they were going to let the process play itself out. But here the Ravens make a loud statement. Teams rarely use picks on kickers without the intent of having those rookies come in and win those jobs. And once the Ravens take Tyler Loop here from Arizona in the 6th round, that tells you that Justin Tucker's future in Baltimore is very much up in the air.
Right. In this particular situation, like if you usually draft a kicker, it's an accident, like you fell asleep while your cousin in the fantasy draft was taking the full allotment of time and then mistakes happen. But again, that's in fantasy. In the real world, it's happened 8 times between 2021 and 2024. That said, all 8 not only made the roster, those 8 started for the team that drafted them in their rookie season.
Game day final. Denzel Ward is a new teammate, Shedeur Sanders, and reached out on X to say, hey, time to be legendary. Of course, Shedeur Sanders' calling card, Deion Sanders, prime, Jesus. There you go. His son is now a Cleveland Brown after a wait that extended a lot longer than most, including there at the Sanders draft party, had anticipated. But Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski and GM Andrew Berry talking about their newest QB.
Our message to him, it's really all this. It's like, look, got to come in and work, and you got to come in and compete. That's the message. Nothing's given. Given the nature of the weekend for him, relative to, let's say, external expectation versus what happened,